We now know the name of a man who died in a boat crash on Lake Vermilion last night.
It happened around 6:20 in Beatty Township, which is on the western side of the lake and north of Cook.
According to the St. Louis County Sheriff's Office, the original report was for several people being thrown from boats into the water. 2 people were taken to the hospital by ambulance. 1 was airlifted to Duluth. A 4th person, identified as 53-year-old Jeremy Johnson from Eveleth, died at the scene. Authorities have not shared the names of the others yet or their conditions. The cause of the crash remains under investigation.